Hello, everyone. Cecil Martin here.
Hey, this is Hunter Henry.
What's up, man? This is Max Crosby, part of Raider Nation.
Hey, this is Ross Tucker, former NFL offensive lineman.
Hey, it's Tyler Lockett of the Seattle Seahawks.
Hey, this is Jerry Judah, wide receiver for the Denver Broncos, and you're listening to the 14-Yard NFL Podcast.
And there we have it. The 2023 NFL season is over, and we have a Super Bowl winner. I'm Sam Moores. This is the Full 10 Yards NFL podcast, and last night we saw the Kansas City Chiefs become the first team to win back-to-back Super Bowls for the first time in 20 years by beating the San Francisco 49ers 25-22 after overtime. It looked like we'd see the first double overtime since 2012, but Patrick Mahomes found Mecole Hardman with just 3 seconds left in the first overtime, and Hardman went in for a touchdown. That touchdown was the touchdown that won Kansas City their fourth Super Bowl and the third with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid in the organisation. And joining me to talk about the big game, Super Bowl 58 in Las Vegas, are a plethora of Full 10 Yards contributors who have been regulars this season. I'm of course talking about Olly, Darcy, Charlie Grace and Owen Cordell. Last night was fun, wasn't it?
I loved it. It was a beautiful game.
That was a great
fun.
game.
It was good fun.
The first half was a bit slow, but they made up for it with electric second half, which I think overtime we were all standing up.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and no one knew how it worked.
We'll talk about that later.
No, it worked.
Mm-hmm. We all watched the game together last night. It was a close game throughout. It was low scoring at the start, and then, as Owen said, it came alive at the end of the third quarter. It was Harrison Butker who sent the game to overtime at 19-19, the first game of the new playoff overtime rules that came in after the Chiefs-Bills game in 2020. And it was actually a great game for the kicking game in general. We saw the two longest kicks in Super Bowl history after Jake Moody broke the record with a 55-yarder, put the Niners 3-0 up in the game, and then Harrison Butker snatched it later on. And we saw the Chiefs obviously prevail. Patrick Mahomes late in the game once more. And that's where we'll start. We'll start with you, Ollie, as you have less of a personal bias against these two teams than the other two, you could say, because they support division rivals. As a neutral watching this game like me, although it was low scoring, I don't know about you, but I thought this game was really just absolutely entertaining football, wasn't it?
Well, we were having this discussion throughout the game, and what it was 10-3 at half time, and we were like, is it similar to that Rams-Patriots defensive bowl that we saw? And although it was low scoring in that first half, I enjoyed the game. I thought it was a really good game. We had a couple of fumbles. It made it interesting. Teams were moving the ball down the field. They just weren't able to put the points up. Second half, there was only a couple of touchdowns in that second half as well. But it was entertaining football. Both defenses made it so much more entertaining. On top of that, it was a really weird dynamic, but I thought it was brilliant. And any game that goes to overtime, whether you're a neutral, you're a fan of opposing, or if you're supporting those teams, it's just nerve-wracking. It was brilliant theatre, proper sports theatre, and it was the perfect way to round out the season in Vegas.
Absolutely. I feel like it worked as well. Like the new rules certainly worked. They were it was fair. Both teams got a chance to score. The Niners scored a field goal. The Chiefs scored a touchdown, and that's what won them the game with both having a possession. Now, Charlie, as a Broncos fan, you're wearing your Broncos hoodie there. Firstly, how did it feel to see John Elway hand the trophy over to the Chiefs? Like, he was walking there with the trophy. I'm like, that man is the legend of your franchise, and he's giving it to a rival team in another rival stadium as well. Like, just giving the Lombardi trophy over.
And they couldn't find anyone else. Everyone else was fully booked up. I mean, Russell Wilson's there to watch it as well. It's just an absolute car crash of an evening for me. But no, I don't even know why he's there giving it to him. I was just really confused by it. I don't know what What is the protocol with it? Like, who did it last year? I can't even remember. Like, is there a? Do they have like a system of doing it that it just happened by chance that he was doing it, or
Is he a part
like
of the players' union or something?
I don't know.
The moment of realization for you last night was too funny. Your jaw just dropped.
It just topped off that night for any Broncos fan or Raiders fan, either, especially in the Raiders stadium as well. It was just like
it was what,
the cherry on top.
4:30 in the morning. 4:30 in the morning, you got to watch that. Brutal.
Yeah. Allegiances aside, though, obviously, Johnny, we now have seen the Chiefs with 3 Super Bowl rings in 4 visits in 6 seasons, with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid as quarterback and head coach. And on Mahomes, I don't know about you, but would you say that he's one of the greatest already?
100%. He's probably top 5 greatest quarterbacks of all time already. And like, I think you'll probably, the name you hear him compared to most is Brady for a reason. Like, he's 28, he's won 3 Super Bowls already. He's got, the way sport science is going now, players take care of themselves. He's got another like minimum 10 years in him already. Like, and that could be like 15. Even if he slows down to a pace of like, let's say they run it back next year and then they blow the whole thing up, they come back in like 5 years and win like another 2. And then he's with Brady at 6 rings already. And it's like, I don't know. If you're an AFC fan, it's a bit bleak because he's, even when the Chiefs haven't been good this year, he's still been, top 5 quarterback in the league. Might not have been MVP, but he's still been obscenely good.
Well, you've got to be superhuman to beat Mahomes in the playoffs. You've literally got Joe Burrow and Tom Brady as the only 2 quarterbacks to have ever beaten Patrick Mahomes in the playoffs. You've got to be absolutely superhuman to do so. And yeah, as you mentioned, I feel like it's crazy. He's 28. He's won 3 Super Bowls in 4 visits, and I think Tom Brady is going to be sweating buckets over the next 10 years or so, because Mahomes he's got at least 10 years. You'd like to think in his career. Again, as sports science is getting better and better, Brady went into his 40s. You can easily see Mahomes doing the same thing. Different games, of course, so that's where he might not get into his 40s, but he's just so good. He did this thing late in the game again. I feel like he's won in a situation like what we saw last night 100 times before. It was actually his first ever overtime, win, into that scale. Obviously the one against the Bills is a different story, but just it's the way he just did it. First Super Bowl overtime since the 28-3 as well. Just in the moment, he also became the first player to win 3 Super Bowl MVP awards as well. Sorry, not third, but he became the first player of this non-Tom Brady era to do so. He had 5, of course. Joe Montana has 3. Obviously, Hall of Famer quarterback for the Niners. And he's now the 5th quarterback with at least 3 Super Bowl titles as well, joining Brady of 7, as well as Terry Bradshaw on 4, Joe Montana on 4, and then Troy Aikman on 3. And there's been a lot of memes about Troy Aikman because in 2019 he said that come to me when Mahomes has won all the titles I had, and he's already won more career games than Aikman or something like that, and he's won his 3 Super Bowl titles at the age of 28 as well. Before we get onto the Niners a bit more, that combination of Reid, Mahomes, Brett Veach as GM, just they have been just tremendously brilliant over the last 5 years. And it's just unless you're a fan of a rival team, it's just such a great story, isn't it? Seeing like this dynasty so soon after a 20-year dynasty in the Patriots, isn't it?
Well, me and Owen were having a chat in the game. It was when the Niners looked like they were taking this game. It was still 10-3. I think, did they get up to 13-3? No, it was 10-3. They still had that, but they had that 10-point lead. Yeah, and it was just, but Kansas Chiefs and their defense just kept them in it, and it was just going to be I said it was going to be a classic Brady style Super Bowl like performance, which is what has done it. Which was what's done it for the Patriots, which is why Brady's the most successful ever. And I mean, Mahomes did that perfect. I mean, he threw a pick, which was a pretty ugly pick, and yet he still just took the game, took control when it mattered. And it was so Brady-esque. It was just like the throws, the plays, just the way his mind works on that football field is just it's dangerous for any team that comes up against them in the postseason, for one, and any team that comes up against them next year, because they're just going to have that confidence after winning 2 on the spin. It is another dynasty. Whether they win one next year or not, it's a dynasty that they now have, and it's eerily similar to the Patriots of a few seasons ago.
Yeah, I mean,
You go.
I mean, he was a very. I agree with Ollie. We're talking about it. It's a very Brady-esque performance, apart from the couple scrambles at the end, which were crucial yards. But I don't see the dynasty stopping anytime soon. I mean, would they have proven they started this season horribly? Everyone was counting them out, but they've proven time and time again. I think their last 3 playoff games, they were underdogs going into it. And it's just, at what point do you stop betting against Mahomes? Because he has proven time and time again that if you do bet against him, it's just silly.
Oh,
yeah, I mean,
this
the
year.
narrative before,
Go on, sorry.
the narrative before was like he's never won a road game, right? Like that was the whole thing of like the missing out on the 1 seed, and then it became like well, at the start of the year actually it was all about the drops, wasn't it? The receivers and where they had the receiving core, and then it became about he's never won a road playoff game, and then people bring in the thing of like teams that wear the coloured jersey never win the Super Bowl, and
that's true because he's seen the one for next year. that theory is true because the one for next year has a very Seattle Seahawks green in it, so it's definitely true.
Yeah,
Jets haven't really sent new green yet. They got new uniforms.
Yeah, they have got new uniforms coming soon.
I don't think anyone wants to see that. Nobody
Jets Niners. That's what it'll be. Super Bowl. Calling it now. New Orleans Super Bowl in a year's time. It'll be Jets
Oh
49ers.
God, no! I'll go to bed early for that one. Jesus.
Anyway, yeah. So we'll go into the Niners a little bit before just talk about this remarkable, Chiefs victory with all odds against them at the points this year, as well. The 49ers were favourites in this game. But they came up short again. Now, me and Liam on the podcast on Friday, we both said that the key to this game would be, could the Chiefs defense slow down the Niners' number one, pretty much, offense, number one in a lot of categories this year? And will the 49ers defense, which is absolutely loaded on paper, will it turn up? Well, they did turn up. They forced the Chiefs in their first, basically 3 quarters of this game. They forced them punt, fumble, punt, field goal, interception, punt, field goal, punt, before the Chiefs went on to again do their thing and score in the final 4 drives. Now, that Isaiah Pacheco fumble that they forced was firmly in the red zone too, so he prevented 7 points. That was a really opportunistic turnover, brilliant from them. And they moved the football on offense as well, especially in the first half. They had a 10-point lead after that Jawan Jennings touchdown flea flicker pass, and had tons of yards compared to KC. There's a point in this game where the Niners had like 120 yards and the Chiefs had about 15. Oh, someone's being called.
Sorry.
Sorry. Anyway, yeah, so they had about 15, had about 10 times more yards than the Chiefs at one point offensively. But it just changed in the fourth quarter, and about maybe second half as well. In general, the Chiefs defense just turned up. They limited them. They were really excellent situationally as well as the Niners defense, and they held Christian McCaffrey to under 4 yards per carry, forcing Brock Purdy to beat them with his arm. And that's not how the 49ers are built to win. If Purdy throws the football 38 times, something has gone wrong in their game plan. That's not supposed to happen. And it had. And but it could have been so different. They could have won that way because they had their chances to win this game. We mentioned a Pacheco fumble. Where there's a very similar fumble by Christian McCaffrey on the first drive of the game. They got just outside the red zone, so about 30-yard line or so. And they fumbled the football. They went empty-handed. Could have been another 7 points. And then they left another point on the table when Jake Moody had that extra point blocked after Juwan Jennings had his receiving touchdown. So that's 8 points they left on the board. They also forced that interception from Patrick Mahomes on the Chiefs, the opening drive of the second half. Jair Brown coming down to intercept that one. A bit of an overthrow from Mahomes over to basically one of his own mistakes of the game. Just overthrew Kelsey, and they couldn't capitalise on the short field there. They were firmly in the Kansas City half, and they couldn't capitalise on that. Brock Purdy took a sack. They got to penalties cost them as well. They got to a 3rd and 15 there, unfortunately for them, they didn't score any points in that drive, and there were actually quite a few turnovers that just resulted in no points. So it could have been a very different story. But when it really mattered, the Niners defense, which has been so great, as I mentioned, that drive shot there, they were so great that for 3 quarters they couldn't stop Patrick Mahomes and they couldn't stop Travis Kelsey, who both made huge plays late in the game, as they always do. And in an incredibly tight game, the Chiefs scored a touchdown on that one overtime possession. The Niners scored a field goal, and that was a difference in this game. It could, coin flip, and we'll get into the coin toss in a minute. But it's just such a weird game with lots of ebbs and flows. But with all the momentum in the first half, Owen, would you say the Niners are really kicking themselves right now?
I mean, they were near perfect for 3 quarters. I would be. There's 3 or 4 big things which swayed the game. I mean, the injuries on the Niners, had 3 or 4 on the night, which were big players as well, like Dre Greenlaw going down, huge. And Debo coming in and out, a couple of others. I don't know, it was like 3 a.m. I can't remember now. But the Kansas City Chiefs did a very, very good job of shutting out Kittle for the most part of the game. And I think that is huge because Brock Purdy, you can tell when he's about to throw the ball, he looks in on one target and he will not scan the field. And most of their big plays this season have come through maybe like Kittle or one of the others being open. And I mean, Ayuk had a decent game, but without Debo to take some of that pressure off him, they obviously struggled. 49ers will be kicking themselves. The Shanahan curse does continue to my happiness. But they played. It's heartbreaking the way they lost as well with 2 seconds left in the overtime. I think the Chiefs caught them with their pants down completely. I mean, you could tell at the end of the game. I don't think Mecole Hardman realised what he'd done. That was the funniest bit. But at the end of the day, it's not a nice way to win a Super Bowl. And I think this is their best chance to win a Super Bowl.
Did he say that after the game? He had no idea.
Yeah, he did.
Mahomes was like, you know what you've done.
And you just have no idea.
Well, he's got such an interesting story as well because he was the guy who was drafted just in case they had to let go of Tyreek Hill for off the field issues. They managed, Tyreek Hill was cleared and they managed to keep Tyreek Hill. And Hardman was a gadget player for them for a couple of years. He only went to the Jets in free agency this year, but he was cut by the Jets. He found his way back onto the Chiefs and he just won the Chiefs the Super Bowl. That's a pretty brilliant story because me and Liam were talking about on Friday. We were talking about who will be that one Chiefs guy that's not Travis Kelce, that's not Isaiah Pacheco, that's not Rashee Rice, that has to make a play in a moment. And there's making a play in a moment, and there's literally the winning Super Bowl touchdown with 2 seconds left in overtime, catching the Niners off guard because they think you're going to run the clock into a second overtime period. That it felt almost anticlimactic there, but it was just brilliant timing from Andy Reid to call that play at that moment, wasn't it?
Yeah,
personally, I wouldn't have thrown it to Mecole Hardman.
I mean, it was just perfect from the.
Go on.
It was just perfect from the Chiefs' standpoint, wasn't it? I mean, they did everything right when they needed to. And on the other side, it was just poor. It was just poor execution from the Niners, which has happened so many times with Kyle Shanahan's teams. He gets so conservative with his play calls it's confusing. Like for three quarters it worked, and they were beating that Chiefs team.
He abandoned the run game, didn't he? He's like, flashbacks of the Falcons Patriots game, like through two quarters they were 10-3 up. They stopped KC on their first drive at the half. Was that the interception, or was that the end of the second? Yeah. So then you got short field, and he's putting the ball in Brock Purdy's arms, and he's like, just run the ball with McCaffrey. Like, you've done it. McCaffrey, like, you said he only had 3.6 yards per carry earlier when Sam, but like, it didn't feel like in the first half in particular, like he was running all over him. Even if you,
but the Chiefs' defense turned up. Like Spag's second half adjustments were just absolutely brilliant. Yeah. And he showed he's the first defensive coordinator or first coordinator to win 4 Super Bowls ever. So that there's a record-breaking game plan from a what probably the greatest ever defensive coordinator. Certainly rings-wise.
Yeah, but at the same time, like from when the interception was alright, you get a first down and you're in field goal range anyway. And then you go 13-3 up, and then the Ray McLeod's muffed punt thing, that's ineffective then. That kind of doesn't swing the game as much, and it's just felt like he abandoned his game plan again, like way too soon. And
that's it as well. It's not the first time he's done that. It's now the second time they've lost a Super Bowl with a double-digit lead, and the third time that Shanahan has as well, because he was the offensive coordinator in Atlanta when they blew a 4-score lead in the Super Bowl against the Patriots in 2016. And that's the thing, he's building quite a reputation now as a big game thrower, you could say. Something that Chiefs head coach Andy Reid had before finding success in Kansas City as well, because he's a perfect case study saying you can turn this around. But he's been in 3 Super Bowls, 2 as a head coach now, and his offense has stalled when really needed to. And it's a shame as well, because obviously he's an excellent coach. Just in the regular season, especially his play calling over the years has been absolutely incredible. He's coached offenses that have had Matt Ryan, Jimmy Garoppolo, and Brock Purdy to Super Bowls. Which talk about the amount of quality quarterbacks we have in the league nowadays. That is super impressive. And in those Super Bowls, he's lost to Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady. So I think quarterback was a difference there. You can notice last night, because Purdy wasn't bad. If anything, I don't really have many faults for what Purdy did last night. But that's the problem is he doesn't add anything. He was the Chiefs' defense limited the best offense in football over the regular season. And they forced Purdy to throw. They blitz, great blitz packages, especially in the middle of the field. Again, I mentioned it on Friday. Smaller quarterback. That's how you get to someone like Brock Purdy. And when it mattered, when they needed points, they could only muster 2 field goals. And the Niners and the Chiefs have the most wins in the last 6 years. The Chiefs have won 3 Super Bowls in that time. The Niners have reached 4 NFC Championship games in that period. They've only won 2 of them, both of those games in San Francisco, and they've won no Super Bowls. So they've both been by far the 2 best teams in the league in the regular season. But the Chiefs have 3 titles. The Niners have none. And the last 2 years have been they've had the best roster in the league. And now they're sitting here again without a ring, with many questions about what they do next. It's just a fascinating storyline, isn't it?
Completely, yeah. I mean, you mentioned Brock Purdy, and I think that was the biggest factor, was you could see the X factor within Patrick Mahomes, and you couldn't see that within Brock Purdy. And it's an easy thing to point at, but it is probably where the game was won and lost. I mean, you mentioned Shanahan's previous quarterbacks, and I'm not having any Matt Ryan slander, my MVP. But Brock Purdy, I think he proved a lot of people wrong, because I said in the build-up, I think he's going to crumble under the lights, and to be fair, he didn't. He held his own for the majority of the game and came up in big spots when they needed him.
He led 3 go-ahead drives at the end of the game.
But the problem is they got field goals. That's the problem.
But that's not necessarily his call, right? That's on Shanahan to call, like the one in overtime. and everyone's going to be like, "Oh, they should have gone for it." In hindsight,
was horrible.
I don't know. I don't think kicking the field goal was a bad decision, but I think we're going to go on to that later. Won't be the whole overtime thing.
The problem the Niners had was their conservativeness in the red zone in that fourth quarter. They, as you said, Charlie, they just kept on putting it in Purdy's hands, and he played well, but it isn't the way they win games. They have to put it in their dynamic players' hands, and to not give it to McCaffrey as much as they hardly did it in that red zone. It was just it's just poor play calling. They did it for the first 3 quarters, and it got them results, and then they just abandoned it in the fourth. I don't get how you can move away from the offensive player of the year, someone that was running the ball pretty freely throughout the game, who scored the first touchdown, who's Christian McCaffrey. It doesn't make sense to me. Like the players, coaches move away from players sometimes in the fourth quarter, and you're like, why are you doing that? And it was just a perfect example of moving away from the perfect player in that situation, and it cost them.
A lot of go on, Charlie.
It was almost in the third quarter where he lost it, where he started going past heavy. Like Purdy had like a run of like 4 incompletions. They showed a thing of like in the first half he had like a 70% completion rate, and in the second half he was like 4 of 11. And that's when the kind of that Chiefs run of like interception, punt, field goal came. And it's like, firstly, they weren't taking time off the clock by giving it to McCaffrey. And secondly, they're like giving quick 3 and outs. And if you keep giving Mahomes and this Chiefs offense the ball, they're going to eventually score. And as the longer you keep it a 1-score game, the more inevitable it becomes that they're just going to pull some out at the end.
But you've got to praise the Chiefs defense as well, because they took away all of, well, if not, most of, if not all, the Niners' dynamic playmakers, because we didn't see much of Deebo Samuel in this game. And yes, he was in and out of injury, but he played for most of this game. We didn't see much of Brandon Ayuk. Yeah, this felt like the Brock Purdy, Jawan Jennings show for most of it. And Jawan Jennings had a great game. We'll get onto him in a little bit. We've got a little bit of a betting section we'll go into in a minute. Jawan Jennings won some of us some money last night. But yes, he's a great player. But when Jawan Jennings is a player relying on in the Super Bowl, then fair play to Spikes for taking away the likes of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle having like 4 yards in this game. Beforehand we were saying he was the guy to watch out for because the Chiefs are so great at taking away receivers. Well, not only did they take away the receivers, they also took away George Kittle, and that is incredible. That is such a brilliant thing from the Chiefs defense. And again, I loved it all year. I've been saying, they may not have the names that other teams do, but I think it's pretty safe to say that you've got the best cornerback duo in the NFL in the L'Jarius Sneed and Trent McDuffie. People were saying that Trent McDuffie should have been Super Bowl MVP with how well he played last night. And again, when you take away someone like Deebo Samuel, you can see why, because they've been so good all year, and McDuffie's going to have a chance to shine now with the L'Jarius Sneed potentially leaving the Chiefs in the off season.
Yeah, I think McDuffie had the one PBU, didn't he, at the back of the end zone on Ayuk. Yeah. That we said was like, I think Owen, you said it's like a Richard Sherman-esque kind of play. That was.
It took me back to 2013. That did. He did also have that big hold in that. He had that. I think it was a hold. It was in a big spot to give San Francisco the fresh set of downs, which was kind of big. I think that's what the deciding factor in Mahomes getting MVP probably was. I mean, they're probably going to give it to him anyway. Let's not kid ourselves. But I think that was one of them moments where I think Chiefs fans started to sweat because they had him out on downs, it looking like a punt, and then he does that hold, which was unnecessary at the time, but I don't think he cares now. He's just got another ring, so.
We'll get on to Shanahan now.
I don't think we realised how much. Sorry, I was just going to say, I don't think we realised how much they erased the middle of the field as well. Kittle had 2 receptions for 4 yards, but Deebo Samuel dominates in that middle of the field as well, and he didn't do anything. Christian McCaffrey had the most receiving. He had the most receptions. He had double the amount of the next person, which was Juwan Jennings. I mean, that's just insane against the number one offense in the league with McCaffrey, Ayuk, Samuel, Kittle. I mean, the secondary of the Chiefs gets a lot of talk, but those linebackers who haven't got anywhere near the names of McDuffie and Snead, because you do hear about them a bit, you don't hear about those linebackers at all, and they just played out of their skin all game. They were fantastic.
Linebacker union.
Anyway, we'll get into the decision from Kyle Shanahan to receive the overtime kickoff rather than wait and see what their defense could do against the Chiefs' offense. And in the aftermath, it actually seemed as if the Chiefs had prepared for the scenario, and the Niners, or from what we've been hearing quotes-wise, they even suggest that the Niners forgot about the new rules. Charlie, you mentioned it there, so I'll ask you about it. It's such a strange situation. Would you have elected to receive, or like, I mean, for example, me, I would have done what the consensus tells you and to defer and let your defense go first, especially when both teams have possession, of course.
See, I go the opposite. I think because you both get a possession, I don't think it matters. I don't think there's a massive. When you only one team got the ball, obviously it's like there's no point having a coin toss, or like there's no point asking the team that wins the coin toss what to do because you're always going to receive. But when you both get a reception, I don't think it matters because I think both teams back their defense so much, and you hear it so much like people talking about points on the board and like scoreboard pressure and stuff. That's more of a cricket phrase actually, but probably equates to this as well. Like. If they'd gone down and got 7 points, then the Chiefs have to score a touchdown, like, and you put so much pressure on them to score a touchdown. Whereas, they got the field goal, like I don't mind it because you've got a top probably 3 defense in the league. Like, there's nothing wrong with backing your defense. Like, everyone loves the like flashy offensive stuff, but. No, nothing wrong with backing your defense, especially with how good they've been all year, how good they've been throughout the game. Other than the final 4 drives in which they all gave up a score, I think they'd held them to 6 points over 3 quarters. So I don't really have a problem with the play call personally.
Fair play. See, I was about to say because I would have let the Chiefs go on offense first because at least you know how many points you have to score. If you win the coin toss, one of the luxuries is you know how many points you have to score. You know they scored. You know they went for the field goal, and so that allowed the Chiefs back in, knowing that a field goal would not only tie the game, but you know a touchdown will win the game. And they ran the clock down. They didn't let the Niners have no possession back. They a perfectly executed drive. If the Niners go and score a touchdown on that first drive, it's a very, very different situation. So
surely you need to score a touchdown either way, right?
Well, but they didn't. That's the point. So it's that I can see where you're coming from there as well. It's like ultimately you can talk about they should have done this, they should have done this. That's just a coin toss. Really, they as you mentioned, when they needed offense, they should have scored a touchdown and they didn't. And in defined margins and they're going to go to overtime. That's the difference, really, isn't it?
I mean, hindsight is great. I mean, we can talk about it in retrospect and see they probably made the wrong decision. But at the time, I respect it from Shanahan. He's backing his team. He's backing his team on both sides of the ball. I don't hate it, but we talk a lot about narratives in this sport, and given Patrick Mahomes the opportunity to go and win an overtime Super Bowl with a touchdown, march down the field, is brave.
Yeah, that's how I feel. It's like maybe if it's someone different, you could say potentially, but Patrick Mahomes, like that's what he does,
he's done it again and again and again.
And that's what I mean. Like what we're seeing from the Chiefs is, it's just brilliant. It's just everyone's so well aligned. They've certainly got a winning culture. That they're Andy Reid, Brett Veach, Steve Spagnuolo, they've built a winning culture and again, it feels like we have a dynasty. We mentioned it earlier. It feels like so shortly after a 20-year New England Patriots dynasty in that AFC, in that conference, and also we have another one. And because the last 2 years, the Chiefs were meant to have down years. They're meant to rebuild. You know, they got all these young picks on defense. They traded away Tyreek Hill, and they've won back-to-back Super Bowls in that period. You know, they're looking brilliant. They've, you know, and they still have Patrick Mahomes at quarterback. They will have they're gonna have to lose some players on defense next year, but they're gonna have a lot of room to go out and get another weapon, which I think they needed this year. But we talked all year, you know, at the points we said, you know, we thought the Chiefs wouldn't even win a playoff game. They won 3 playoff games on the road, then went to go and win a Super Bowl. I think what this year has taught us is never count out the Kansas City Chiefs, hasn't it?
I mean, you lose 16 straight, and you learn that pretty quick. But no, it's, you know, a bit like Owen said, I suppose, with the narrative and the spectacle that Mahomes is, and Kelsey in there as well. I suppose there's always that kind of the feeling of like momentum and a bit of. I saw someone compare it to Alex Ferguson's like United side, just like this sense of like inevitability about it, like when Mahomes had 30 seconds going all the way back to the Bills divisional round game. It's like there's still like a sense of inevitability about it. But yeah, it's a scary prospect going forwards as well, especially like you said that they're not going to have this poor of a receiving core again next year.
They do take some big hits on defense though, because they can't re-sign both Chris Jones and Snead. I don't see it happening. One of them's got to go.
Well, the analytics tell you that the salary cap is just a number, so that you'll be able to get zero. Look at the Saints. Look at the Saints at 80 million in cap hell, and they still manage to keep it under the cap every single year. So if you can restructure deals, you can keep someone in town. I think Chris Jones will leave, but I feel like the defensive tackle market, especially this year, is quite good. So I feel like you'll be able to get someone there. And yeah, you've got to sign L'Jarius Sneed, because him and McDuffie, again, I mentioned it earlier, they're the two best cornerback duo in the NFL. As for Andy Reid, obviously, the head coach of the Kansas City Chiefs, this was his 3rd Super Bowl ring. And it's interesting because there's been a lot of talk about retirement with Andy Reid. But it feels like he's here to stay. It really does. You know, he's 5 wins away from tying Bill Belichick's all-time most postseason wins record. So 2 more years in the playoffs, maybe 1 Super Bowl. He'll be the most successful coach in the postseason of all time, and that's remarkable. Bear in mind that Bill Belichick has won 6 Super Bowls, and he's not too far away from Belichick and Don Shula in most wins by a coach ever. So. Yeah, and they're already talking about a 3-peat. They were saying that in the trophy presentation last night. It was like, we're going to go win it again. Now, each and every one of you, we'll start with Olly. What do you think Andy Reid stays? And if so, do you reckon he's there for a long time, or do you think this is a good moment for him to retire?
I can't see what on earth would tell him to leave, apart from him either not having the energy, as Jurgen Klopp would say over here in the land of football, or he's had it, or it is his time. What is going to deter you away from the situation that he's in? He's arguably the best offensive play caller still in the league. He's got the best quarterback in the league. He's got the best tight end in this league. He's going to get better wide receivers. And for the first time in a long time, he's got a defense that is absolutely insane. This defense over the playoffs were just unbelievable. So you can talk about, he could dance around and say, I might do this, I might do that, dance behind the line and say that. What would take him away from that situation? I don't get it. It's like, it is the perfect coaching situation. I think you put any head coach in the league in that job and they could honestly make the playoffs with Mahomes as quarterback. It's so perfect. And him and Mahomes, they have some sort of connection. I don't know what it is, but they can plan it out, and they just get these wins out of absolutely nowhere. I mean, the fourth quarter, they just took the middle of the field over. They had beautiful designs where there were blockers out front for Mahomes. It's Andy Reid's heaven, I think. It's just his heaven, and it's the perfect place for him to carry on for another 2-3 years, and maybe even chase Belichick's 6 rings.
There we are, Charlie. I'm sure, obviously, you're a Broncos fan. I'm sure you're hoping that Reid does step aside.
Well, his rap sheet tweeted an hour ago that he's confirmed he's staying.
Yeah.
So,
right,
an hour and a half ago. Well, I saw a notification. I wasn't sure it was just a rumor, but I just seen it as rap sheet as well. So,
rap sheet's always true. It must be true. It's gospel.
There we are.
I suppose the motivation of the 3-peat probably has.
It's because I'll say, why would you retire on the chance of a 3-peat? There's no point in retiring on.
They're not losing a load of offensive pieces, are they? As far as I'm aware, I don't think there's anyone that they're losing on offense, and they're going to gain a big receiver. Like, the receiver market's pretty decent free agency wise, I believe, and
they can draft players
in the draft as well. Like
they're very, very good at drafting, especially in later rounds as well. That's where they're really good. So
Sorry, we were saying last night, Mike Evans, free agent. If he goes Chiefs, I might just not watch it next year. It's over. It's done. No, I was going to say, Andy Reid seemed in the high spirits after the game. I mean, he joked about the Travis Kelce incident, saying he keeps him young and stuff like that. So, I mean, I know it's confirmed now, but I didn't really have any doubts that he weren't going to carry on.
There we are, and we'll finish the podcast with our bets for the evening. A couple of us had a few bets. I was up. I had 20 plus points for both teams. So thank you, Overtime, for for helping me with that. Yeah, Owen, you were quite significantly up as well. You cashed on Jawan Jennings' big day, didn't you?
Yeah, I took him halfway through the game. I think it was after he got the big first down. It was after he threw the touchdown. It was before he received one. It was 100-1 odds Super MVP. So I whacked £1 on it. I wasn't that brave, only £1 on it, but cashed out for 20 when I got nervous because the Chiefs were making a comeback. But other than that, got a couple national anthem and coin toss bets come through, and got Gatorade colour, got that right. I don't know. I think overall I was up like £40, which ain't too bad, but yeah.
Awesome. You're about to say we in our watch party last night we had about 10 people in our house, and we were were gripped to the Gatorade shower, and we were gripped to the national anthem length and everything pre-game. And again, Owen, you had probably one of the most successful days out of everyone there.
Did they?
They did afterwards. It was purple.
Okay.
I saw it on Twitter and I was like, yes.
One thing you didn't win any money on was the halftime show, and if I'm honest, I was slightly underwhelmed by it. It wasn't the worst I've seen, but I think Usher left some pretty popular songs out there. Just some didn't even feature that you really would, looking at his back catalogue, you think would be on there. What are your boys' thoughts on the halftime show?
I mean, Ollie Darcy's our music expert, no?
Not when it's Usher. I didn't know what half the songs were. It was all right. I'm as I said, I'm not a big Usher fan, but as Sam said, there were a few songs that even I knew that he didn't play. My barometer is it worse than Maroon 5? And if it's above Maroon 5, then they've done something right. So it was above Maroon 5. It was decent. There have definitely been worse halftime shows in the last few years than Usher's, but it wasn't. It definitely wasn't as it wasn't a Lady Gaga or Coldplay or J-Lo and Shakira, which were proper top tier Super Bowl shows, which is what you always expect when you come to the Super Bowl show. You see the best two teams and you expect the best halftime show, and sometimes it's underwhelming. I'd like to know what the other boys thought of it. I know Owen was having a jive to a few of his songs, but it was having a great decent. It was good entertainment.
I mean, I feel bad for anyone who performs now because they automatically get compared to like Prince and Michael Jackson, and they're two of the greatest. It's just unfair. But I think Usher owes a big thank you to Alicia Keys for saving the halftime show with one of the greatest songs ever made. But I mean, it was a weak start from him. He saved it a bit at the end. He should have brought out Justin Bieber. He was there. My disappointment was immeasurable, but it is what it is. I mean, as Ollie said, it weren't Maroon 5, so I guess that's a positive.
Brilliant.
I think it's a really weird start, and then like in the middle he picked up. Like there was a really good like 5-minute section in the middle, and then the end was just a bit like anticlimactic. He just dragged the air out for about 5 minutes.
On roller skates,
and they look like
he did a costume. He did a costume change on roller skates. Which is fair play to him. That's pretty impressive.
I'm just fuming he weren't wearing sunglasses. So much money if that bloke was wearing sunglasses.
Absolutely. And the other thing as well is like the bit in the middle you mentioned, Charlie, as well. That was when he had loads of features. So he had like Ludacris and Alicia Keys and her and that's when he brought out all the features. So like the bits in his own, the start and the end were quite underwhelming. But it was okay. As you mentioned, Ollie, it was better than that Maroon 5 Super Bowl, which was which is horrific. That's it. That's the podcast. That's it done. That is the 2023 starts 2024 if you look at the playoffs in the last week of the season. NFL season completed. We've had 51 podcasts over this season, and these boys have joined me for over 12 of them now. So that's quite a big percentage. So thank you all for joining me on the podcast this season. We're taking a little bit of a break now, but we will come with some draft stuff over the next couple of weeks, as well as big free agency focus in March as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll be having lots of these boys on, as well as many of the other guests that are featured over the season. We'll have more on over the off season as well. We're not going away, but we will take a couple of weeks break just before the start of free agency and the NFL Combine at the end of February. But yeah. That's it. Thank you to these guys for coming on. All of them, they're all great sports journalists, and you can see their ads on the screen as well if you want to go follow their content if you're watching the video version on YouTube. But that's it. The Kansas City Chiefs have won Super Bowl 58. We are now looking at Super Bowl 59 in New Orleans. Everybody is waiting and hoping they reach the Caesars Superdome next year. And we've got a whole 7 months now of the off-season to think about what we're doing. I've been Sam Moores. It's been a Full 10 Yards NFL podcast, and let's start that NFL off-season.